This Read 180 topic is made possible by a grant from
Kellogg's Rice Krispies, who reminds you, books are totally overflowing with cool stuff. Get in on it. Wake up to the amazing world of reading.
And by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and the annual financial support of viewers like you.
Can anything good come from that hour of science lab every week? Yes. A science job doesn't just mean playing with test tubes all day in a lab with no windows. The 4 scientists you're about to meet are out there, living on the edge, and taking risks that most people wouldn't dream of, all in the name of science. We call it Not Your Boring Science Job, and your VJ Tammi is here to take you through it.
Hey, I'm Tammi. Boring is the last word I'd use to describe Dr. Jesus Rivas. If anything, they should make an action-adventure movie about this guy. They've already made a movie about anacondas. But what about someone who willingly wrestles with them so he can haul them in to be studied? It may sound crazy, but he's having a blast.
Snake Stalker.
Anaconda, one of the world's biggest snakes and a legendary killer. Not with poison, but with power. It slowly strangles and suffocates its prey, then swallows it whole. But that doesn't stop biologist Jesus Rivas from getting up close and personal with this massive predator.
If I let her wrap around me and I'm history and gone.
Jesus is leading the first ever study of the anaconda in the wild. He and his wife, Renee Owens, have caught, cataloged, studied, and released about 800 of them, all the while braving flesh-eating piranhas and killer caimans in the swamps of Venezuela. And Jesus does it all barefoot, so he can tell what's slithering around down there. He's learned that anacondas can grow as large as 30 feet long and weigh as much as 550 pounds. By putting radio transmitters inside the snakes to track and follow them, Jesus discovered the female doesn't eat for the entire 6 months of her pregnancy, which may explain the ravenous appetite. This snake is feasting on a 120-pound capybara, the world's largest rodent. It'll take days to digest it. Jesus believes the anaconda will take any prey it can subdue and swallow, possibly even him. But so far, he likes the score. Jesus, 800. Anaconda, 0. A 100 years ago, people seriously thought you could understand how the brain works by feeling the lumps and bumps on your head. Luckily, we know better now. In fact, cool new technologies are revealing more about the brain than we've ever known. The brain surgeon in our next story is using these new tools to do operations that look like something out of science fiction, but they're real. So take a look.
Dr. Brain.
Call him the head guy if you like. As a children's brain surgeon, Dr. Ben Carson performed some of the toughest and most dramatic brain operations the world has ever seen. Before Dr. Carson, not many doctors were willing to perform this radical operation called hemispherectomy. It involves removing half the brain as a last resort treatment for kids with uncontrollable seizures. But Dr. Carson perfected the surgery and he's done it on dozens of kids. Amazingly, after the operation, the remaining half of the patient's brain takes over most functions of the missing half. Dr. Carson has also stunned the world by separating twins who were joined at the head. In the past, one or both of the infants always died from this surgery. It takes guts, not just brains, to do what Dr. Carson does. He has to be confident, so before an operation like this, he practices, using state-of-the-art brain imaging technologies. This virtual reality workstation lets Dr. Carson surf through an image of the patient's brain before he goes in for the real deal. If you think all that's impressive, it may surprise you to learn that, as a boy, Ben Carson was a terrible student.
I was no question at the bottom of the class.
So how did he get from the bottom of his class to the top of his profession? For one thing, he got hooked on reading.
Between the covers of those books, I could go anywhere in the world. I could be anybody. I could do anything. It was phenomenal.
Talk about doing a 180.
Working with dead people may not be your thing, but if you want to study mummies, it comes along with the territory. The archaeologist you're about to meet is devoted to saving mummies because they hold clues to cultures that have totally disappeared. This job may sound a little gruesome, and trust me, it is.
Mummy Dearest.
Archaeologist Dr. Sonia Guillen never knows where her job may lead or what she'll find there. This time, it takes her to a tiny spot in the mountains of Peru, to a world that almost disappeared without a trace. Except for the mummies. Mummies are Sonia's specialty. On this expedition, she's recovering the remains of 219 Chachapoyas, an ancient people that lived here 1,000 years ago. Men, women, even babies have been embalmed for centuries in the tombs over these cliffs. Most of these mummies were damaged by looters looking for gold.
Oh, Sonia, here comes an arm.
The team takes them out of harm's way so they can be stored in a museum. But first, Sonia will search for clues about how these people lived and died. Back at the lab, she creates diagrams, measurements, photographs, and x-rays.
You're looking for every single detail.
Right down to the last whiff. Unraveling a mummy can take days. The cloth is a valuable artifact, so it has to be handled carefully. Sonia's unwrapped more than 300 mummies, but there are always surprises. This one contains part of a necklace and a swatch of hair. This one had great teeth.
No cavities.
This one has amazingly well-preserved skin.
You can even trace the lines in his forehead that he had when he was alive.
We'll never know all the secrets of the Chachapoyas or why they were buried this way. Sonia thinks their mouths were left open to let spirits in and out. But it's just one possible theory. Now, if only they could talk.
Why would someone expose themselves to burning acid, poisonous gases, horrible smells, bats, bugs, and slime? Science. Seriously. The woman in our next video spends her time in one of the weirdest spots in the world, a cave that was carved out of gooey acid. No one can really explain why living things are growing in this putrid little place, but she's given it her best shot, and she actually seems to be enjoying it. Let's watch.
Cave Woman.
Welcome to a place where acid drips from the walls and dangles disgustingly from the ceiling, and poison gases bubble up from underground streams, stinking of rotten eggs. For years, geologists like Luis Hos imagined a place like this might exist. But this is the real deal, one of the few acid caves in the world in Villa Luz, Mexico. What they didn't imagine is finding life in this killer atmosphere. In addition to bats, fish, and bugs, Luis and her research partner have found huge amounts of bacteria, fungi, and microbes that somehow live off poison gas and secrete acid inside the cave. These microorganisms multiply into sticky, gooey formations with delightful names like snotites and phlegm balls. Disgusting? Yes. And deadly too. In the nastiest parts of the cave, the acid is as strong as battery acid, and oxygen levels can drop without warning. Louise is wearing a blinky that will beep if gas levels are dangerously high. She works quickly, taking samples of water and measuring the growth of microbes. She's careful not to sit where the acid can burn her skin. She finishes up by slithering through poisonous mud in an industrial-strength suit, collecting more clues about this weird little ecosystem. Louise has seen plenty of ordinary caves, which take tens of thousands of years to form, but this one changes right before her eyes because the slimy acid is rapidly eating away at the stone, carving the cave from the inside out. Yeah, she's taking a big risk down there, but this cave really gets under your skin.
In case you've been hiding in a cave, this topic is finished.